every few seconds you have a reel coming up. Your mind is being stimulating every few seconds.
Yeah.
You're not going to, it's like a drug.
Yes.
So the more you use your phone, the thinning of the frontal cortex, which also means that you're going to lose common sense. There's another American research that shows that children who are on their phones for more than a couple of hours every day are at a higher risk of anxiety and depression. This is addiction 24/7.
Dr Ragini Bahry, who is an adolescent psychiatrist, she has been consulting since 2018 in the Priory group.
Young children are very, very vulnerable to cyberbullying, sexual stuff going on. We have to be cautious. Kids have become very anxious, they've become depressed, they've become addicted to their phones. All our kids are a copy of what we are. No gadgets are allowed on the dinner table. No gadgets are allowed when you're traveling with them in the car. Everybody's phone is going. There's a direct correlation about, how much time you spend on your gadgets and how much interaction do the kids have with you and their speech and language development and all the extracurricular activities and their activities of daily living skills. We need a detox
100%.
for our children to have a detox.
You're right.
Spending time with your children because they are your priority and there is no going away from that. We don't have the support systems in school. They need to be a part of everything you do. If you're getting a child who's giving you threats that if you take my mobile away, I'm going to kill myself, you do go and see a psychiatrist.
Hello, I'm Dr Vanita Ratan.
And I'm Anisha Vasani.
Welcome to Taboo Table Talks, where we're uncovering controversial topics in a modern world.
It's now time to change conversations and also question the status quo. Dr Ragini Bahry joined Priory Group in 2018 as a consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist at Priory Hospital in North London. Before joining Priory, Dr Bahry worked as a community consultant at the North London NHS Foundation Trust as a child and adolescent psychiatrist for 4 years. It's so lovely to have you here. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
We are so excited because obviously we know that technology has impacted so much in terms of like children from as young as, 5 all the way going up to teenagers. Tell us about the experience that you have seen over the past years and, how much is impacting our youth of today.
I think my experience that has been there in the last few years has been that children have been more and more addicted towards gadgets. It could be iPhones, it could be tablets, it could be gaming. And when you ask parents as to what children do in their spare time, they just look at me and that they're on their phones.
Wow.
Or they are on their gadgets. So that's what children are doing for leisure. That's what children are doing when they have free time. They are on gadgets, they are on their iPads, they are on any form of gaming, and they are actually just looking at social media. They're not talking anymore, they are snapping. So when you ask them, have you texted XYZ? No, I haven't texted. I'm just going to snap them.
What's a snap?
Snapchat.
Oh, I'm just going to snap them.
I'm just going to snap them.
Like a DM, like
Yes,
text them.
yeah.
So
So
they communicate through social media
They
platforms.
communicate through social media, but they've got ways of communicating through social media, which means that they're not actually talking even on text message anymore.
Yeah.
They're talking through snapping each other.
And does it go with Snap? Does it go after you've seen it once?
Yeah.
So this is what scares me is cyberbullying that can happen through Snap, where you can send whatever message you want to that person. There is no proof of that message having been sent.
Yeah.
You can send the most vile words or pictures, and that person's seen it, and you can't unsee anything.
Yeah.
And now you're scared as a child, because if you go and tell your parents, they're going to take your mobile phone away from you,
100%.
and you're going to be punished when you're the victim, and you have no proof. So what have you seen in this space?
Yeah. So I think my role is a split role. I do inpatient work where I see the severe end of mental health problems, and then I also do my outpatient work where there are milder issues that I manage and treat in the community. I do work with a lot of children with autism and ADHD as well. So what I notice is when you've got certain vulnerabilities, when you are a more vulnerable young person, say for example you've got mental health issues or you've got ADHD, you've got autism, you are anyways more vulnerable because you really want to belong. This is an era where all of us want to belong, including adults. So you get, you don't know who's on the other side of the phone. You don't actually know who you're snapping with. But, young children are very, very vulnerable to cyberbullying. sexual stuff going on, which they're very, they really don't want to talk to this about their parents until it reaches a stage where the school's found out because of XYZ, or, the police get involved because of something. So our children are really, really at risk and vulnerable.
How does it happen? So, for example, there is a lot of abuse that happens even in the sexual world with sexting, and that's almost become
a thing.
Yeah, everyone's heard of it, which is crazy. Yeah. How are you meant to even broach this with your child, and how does it? What's the mechanism of this? How does it work? As a parent, I don't understand this world. I don't understand why you would ever send a nude of yourself to anyone. Why?
I think because, like I've said, firstly there's peer pressure, and there's a sense of wanting to belong. Everybody wants to have, be where everybody else is. You're not the cool person if you're not doing it. So there is this thing where, whether it's wanting to belong there in certain groups of people that you hang out with, it's peer pressure. She's done it, so I can do it. And it's going to be all right, because it's just that. It's just that one picture he's asked me for, or one picture that she's asked me for. And then it keeps going. They don't realize their minds are still developing. And it's only later that they realize that actually, no, it wasn't the right thing to do. Just going back to your question about how do you approach this with your kids, I think this is where your bonding and your interpersonal relationships come into play with your children. They don't need to be punished. They don't need to be looked at as if they've done a big crime, because what they need is support from us. They need support from the community to understand that actually we are dealing with another pandemic, which is not COVID, but which is a pandemic of actually the digital world, which none of us have a book for. There isn't a book that tells us how to manage this. So it's not something that any of us have seen before. It's all new to us. Technology is new to us. Language is new to us. This language that they use, I have teenage kids, and the language that they use, half of the time not understanding what they're saying. So I've asked them to clarify. I work in an inpatient unit where there are teenagers, and the language that they use, sometimes I have to look at them and say, please, can you explain what that means?
Like what? Give me an example.
For example, I'm sick looking at this. Is sick, man.
And
you just say, this is sick. I thought this was really nice. That's what I exactly mean. That's sick. My mum, if you get a new car, the kids will be like, Mum, this is sick. I'm like, is the car sick? No, that's not what they mean. They don't mean the car is sick. It just means that it looks really nice.
Yeah. That's about the only slang that I know.
All the slang. It's changed so much.
It's changed.
I mean, this is the new generation, because I was doing lots of research, and they're calling this the Generation Alpha. It's the iGen, and it's called the Screen Agers, where it's the newly combined terms of the new tech-savvy youth of today. Now, what age would you say that parents should allow their children to have access to devices? Because when, some parents we're always having debates that for the children's safety, to communicate with them when they're picking them up from school, vice versa, they need to have the phone to obviously communicate with them. But then these children are using these phones and devices for their own personal, like you said, like using social media platforms or for gaming. So what would your advice be? Because this is a debate that is constantly going on around of what age is the correct age for a child to have a phone.
There is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, I know.
I know. Like I said, it didn't come with a manual on it. I just wish when they invented all these gadgets, they came with a manual. Can't give to anybody above 14 or under 14 or whatever. I think, we want to use, everything has its benefits. We can't just look at a device and say, well, this is just, it's come with its own benefits. There's a research in Korea that talks about the benefits of using mobile phones or gadgets, because it helps with multiple things, like children how they learn how to use emergency services, they know how to dial things.
You could do that with a flip phone.
I know.
So what else? Give me something else.
Yeah.
I feel like they're reaching here.
But they are getting ready for the technology, and they're getting ready for the techno world as well.
So even this, for example, we were brought up without Facebook, without anything, and we're influencers now, and we had to learn how to do that in the digital world. And do you know how I did it? I bought a book on how to do social media, and then I started practicing. So you don't need to grow up with social media to learn how to do well on this platform as well.
No, but I think we have to be cautious because there's two aspects. One is learning, but the other aspect is the emotional and mental health of your kids. Because if it's only your child in class who has no access to anything, they are going to be the ones who are really going to be left out. You can't have that either.
I know.
I think it's about striking a balance. And this is the rule that I've followed all throughout my career. If you're asking somebody not to do anything, please can you tell them what to do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Explain.
This is the big thing. No, tell them what to do.
Instead.
So if you tell somebody you're not supposed to go on your mobile phone, please can you also add, can you go out and start playing football? Or can we play a game together? Can we actually go out for a walk? Can we go and eat something? Can you help me in the kitchen? Can you just say what else you're expecting them to do?
So you can't take a void without filling the void.
Exactly. You can't just dictate things to people without actually saying what you're asking them to do. Because at school, when they're not using their mobile phones, they're in education. The school is providing education. When they're at home, if we keep saying, no, you're not allowed anything, they need some time to relax as well. They need their own time for relaxing. It's about getting that balance right. It's about knowing where to strike the balance. It's about knowing when to give and when to hold back. When to give, when to hold back. That is the key. That is the key.
Absolutely. But I've seen a lot of the younger youth now lacking in social interaction, especially at the dinner table. Like my sister, is really debating with my goddaughter, who's now 11 years old, constantly has her iPad on, watching just, her games or her movies, and lacks that interaction. And when I say to her, why is she not present in the moment? Why is she not engaging with us? She's like, because it's going to take her longer to eat her dinner. You're not here all the time. You don't understand the tantrum she's going to have if she doesn't have it. And this is the only way that we can find a balance of peace and harmony. And she gets her, gets her food eaten on time. But I don't agree with it, because I think they should be present in the moment. I think they should interact. And when I do actually try and discipline her, she says to me, well, you're always on your phone anyway, Annie. You're always on your phone. Because with what I do for a living myself, as we're influencers, we're constantly on our phone. But at that point at dinner time, I say I'm not on my phone, and it's time to put the phone away, because I want you to be present in the moment, and I want you to enjoy this moment. And you'll probably eat quicker actually as well, whilst you're not engaging, because I feel it takes her longer.
It does. This is where reflection is important. As a family, you need to reflect, and parenting is two people together. Yeah, so mum and dad, whether you're together or separated, need to be on the same page on things. You don't have to be, living in the same house, but you need to have you have to have the same rules. There are families that do follow certain rules where no gadgets are allowed on the dinner table, no gadgets are allowed when you're traveling with them in the car. So in my house, everybody eats at different times. However, in the car, when I'm driving the kids to school and back, they're not allowed to use their phones at all, because that's my time with them. But it cannot be just at my discretion. It needs to be when they need it as well. The research that I was talking about, it's done in children who are much younger, 1 to 6 years of age, and that talks about how there is a direct correlation with how much time parents spend on their mobile or any gadgets really, to how the children develop speech and language and social interaction. There's a direct correlation. It was a big study conducted in Korea, which talks about how there's a direct correlation about how much time you spend on your gadgets, and how much time, how much interaction do the kids have with you, and their speech and language development, and all the extracurricular activities and their activities of daily living skills.
So you talked about 1 to 6. The other cohort I'm nervous about is the 12 plus, who are starting to get mobile phones because they tend to be walking home from school more. I still don't understand why you need a mobile phone to walk home from school, because we all did. Or I was on the bus and I never had a mobile phone. So I feel like, you can have a flip phone if you really need to call mum and say, can you collect me at a certain time? I do think that the Android and the iPhone is there for the cool factor, and because you don't want to be left out and you don't want to be ostracized from the group, which is fine. But as long as we are honest about it, and it's not for, you know, if it was for safety purely, we just would have got the flip phone, right? It's cheaper, you know, there's no other apps on there, and you can call mum. If that was really what it was truly for, we'd have done that. But everyone wants to have a little bit of the cool factor, and they don't want to be ostracized, so they're going for these Androids. Now, what I'm finding is when I talk to the younger people in my family who are in their teen years, I'm finding more apathy. So when I'm talking to them, I feel like there's no zest in their eyes. It's very very casual conversation, not really that interested, and really just trying to get back to the phone. So it's almost like they're just trying to answer my questions in order to get back to the phone. And life is not as interesting, honestly, as the stimulation you're getting from your phone. So is there a correlation between dopamine hits that you're getting and apathy in real life? Because honestly, nature is not as exciting. If you go for a hike, it's not going to be as exciting as playing any game on your phone.
I think the way phones are developed, or the video games or the iPhones or any Android phones, the way they have been, you've got Insta on it, or you've got other things, TikTok on it, for example. Every few seconds you have a reel coming up, yeah? Your mind is being stimulating every few seconds. You're not going to, it's like a drug.
Yes.
There's research to show that the some of the use of phone can be actually compared to an addiction, like drug addiction, because it's that kind of dopamine surge that you will get through using a phone as well. So that's the kind of thing that you get. And also it talks about thinning of the frontal cortex. So the more you use your phone, the thinning of the frontal cortex, which also means that you're going to lose common sense kind of things. You're going to start using Google for everything. Because at our times, we used to pick up books. We needed books. We need to go to the library if we need to find something. Now it's just a Google away. You can find what you like. You just need Google. You don't need anything else anymore. So it's all kind of changed so much. And that's why there's also, there's another American research that shows that children who are on their phones for more than a couple of hours every day are at a higher risk of anxiety and depression. Whether that's then linked directly to social media, that second bit of the research hasn't been carried out, whether that's linked to social media directly or whether it's just linked to the constant stimulation and the light. So we don't know whether it's related to that or whether it's related to, just related to sort of social media and people constantly seeing what the other person is doing.
So if this is affecting the frontal cortex, this is the reasoning part of the brain.
It's your executive function as well.
So then does this mean that not only are you vulnerable because now you're exposed to the outside world if you're on social media, now you also are unable to execute as you might have done without it and unable to reason as well without it? Does that put you more vulnerable?
100%. Because what that does to you is you are actually becoming more dependent on things. You're isolating. There are multiple papers to show that people who are using a lot of social media are actually more isolating themselves more than they used to. They don't want to go out because they are finding their friends on social media, or they find talking to people through games, etc. So they don't want to go out. So there's more isolation. People are losing social skills. And I wonder because we've now got this surge suddenly of people suffering from ADHD, people suffering from autism spectrum disorder. I'm not only talking about the children with learning difficulties and ASD, but I'm also talking about high functioning autism. In the past we would call it Asperger's, but now we're calling it high functioning autism. I wonder how that impacts on their social abilities. How does that have an impact on their social communication skills? How does that have an impact on their language skills? What was the use of the mobile when they were much younger? How has that affected their language skills? Was there something that was going to develop that didn't develop? And ADHD, obviously, we do know that children with ADHD and they are more prone to addiction. So, this is this is addiction 24/7 because, they've got access to their phone 24/7.
Yeah. So what can we as parents, guardians, role models, influencers do to help now the younger generation to play this positive role to teach them about having this balance, what are the things that we can implement in our day-to-day lives that we can I know you've mentioned a few already about balance and having that reflective time and having that family time, but what else can we do where we're not finding that we're constantly having debates? Because what I see then is they actually start to resent you when you try to be strict and you try to enforce things, and then they feel like they're left out, which is then going to lead them to being bullied at school, or like you were saying, left out. What can we do more, like as certain activities or certain things that we can do from a younger age that doesn't then obviously get them into the situation in the first place?
We'll have two set of problems here, isn't it? The first set being, which is I think easier to solve, which is with the younger kids who are, who are now sort of in the process of developing and growing up, where we understand this a bit more. There is more people like you trying to help out, so there's a more understanding of what's going on. So about implementing strategies there, it would be things like, as a family first, deciding what you're going to be allowed and what not going to be allowed. So setting some firm rules and having boundaries. And you might get resentment from your child when when they're younger, or when they are teenagers. I think the resentment is 10 times higher. But when they are, but I think as parents, if you have got your bonding right, your attachment right, the resentment is temporary. So if my daughter says, I'm not putting my phone away at 9 o'clock, I'm like, that's what you're doing, sweetie. Otherwise, you're not having your phone charged, and that means it runs out of battery, and then you don't have a phone next day. You make a choice.
So you've done two things. Number one, you've got good attachment, and number two, there's also a slight threat there, because you can't have the thing that you want if you don't listen to what I'm saying, which is fine. Well, honestly, I was raised that way. So.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think it's a threat. It's about having firm boundaries.
But there's a negative thing that will happen if you don't listen to what I'm saying, because like you're saying, it won't be like that's the same with everything. There's consequences to whatever you do in life.
So I think the way we have to look at it is, it's not a negative. It's not a punishment.
Not a punishment.
It's not a punishment. It is a consequence of some of your actions.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I didn't, if I've promised that I'm going to come here today and I don't come, you wouldn't be contacting me the next time. That is a consequence of my action.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the same thing happens in school.
Absolutely.
The reason people stick to boundaries is because there's a consequence to things.
Yes.
And it's not that I'm saying that you're never going to have your mobile. There is a reasonable, that's why I said the first step is to sit down as a family, have your child involved in that discussion. So tell me, what is the reasonable time where you think you can give your phone away? They might start with 12 o'clock in the night, and then you bring them down to 9 o'clock. But they feel they are a part of this negotiation.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we do in the ward. Because they stay with us, the young kids stay with us. We listen to them. They have to give their phones at 10 o'clock. If they, and that's the rule of the ward. You give your phone away at 10 o'clock. If you were in a boarding school, you give your phone away at 8 o'clock. That is the rule of the school.
Okay.
So it's not because we don't want them to have something. It's because we want to ration what they've got, and that's for their own mental health and their future.
Protect them.
Absolutely.
It's to protect them from everything.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. What happens though if, number one, maybe the bond is not there because maybe the parent themselves have been on the phone too much with the child growing up, which honestly I think is a lot of us would almost use the phone as another parent and think, the child is quiet, the child is listening, the child looks stimulated. Oh, I'm doing a really great job. You're telling yourself you're doing a good job, but actually you're never really creating the attachment in the first place. And then second, COVID hit and everybody had phones. There were no rules. We didn't know about boundaries. We didn't know about contracts, family contracts that people sit and sign with each other. So now you're in a situation, the bond is maybe not as strong as it could be, and there are no boundaries. How do you come back from that when now also the prefrontal cortex is maybe atrophying and they're not also reasoning with you, and now they're going through hormones, which honestly I think is the vast majority of the teenagers globally, not just in the UK. I think it's a global situation.
Like I said, it's another pandemic.
It's another pandemic.
So
can you solve that one for me?
Yeah. in a minute. I think this is, like we'll have to go back a bit, isn't it? You will have to start saying, I'm sorry that I've allowed this to happen for a long time. Maybe I've been wrong somewhere as well. So, what we feel as a family is that we want to now just change things around a little bit. And you are going to get, I get resentment every single day when I ask the kids to put their phone away. And I have to say, look, my phone's going away as well. It's not only your phone. I am taking a book and I'm reading as well. We're all doing it, sweetie. Everybody's phone is going.
Yeah.
All the gadgets are outside and everybody is actually reading or trying to fall asleep, whatever you wish to do. So I think you'll have to go back a bit and build that and talk and say, this is what we're going to do. This is the rationale for it. This is what we want. This is why we're doing it. And we're going to spend more time as a family, and we are going to do X, Y, Z. We are going to go hiking, or we're going to go for walks. We're going to go out for dinner, and slowly integrating idle time. So you can't just one day say, now that's it, no more phone, 9 o'clock, everything is shut, nothing is happening anymore. It doesn't work like it's a process.
So titrating.
Yeah, you're titrating it, and you're titrating it down, and you're saying, look, please, I think COVID was hard for all of us. Nobody knew what we were doing. So, but now we know. Let's take the dog for a walk. And give them some responsibilities. Teenagers, they can have some responsibilities in the house as well. It's nice because everybody's a part of something then. So we're trying to, I think also with this generation, we do try to overcompensate for our kids a lot of the time. Everything is too comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And we don't want to be in any conflict with our kids.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's good to have a bit of conflict. It's the actual real world.
I agree with you. And I think this is everywhere. So it's trying to strike this balance between having a great relationship with your child and not wanting conflict, but also you want what's best for them.
Yeah.
So you tend to give in. I can understand what you're saying with, just giving the screen because you don't have any conflict. And everyone just wants peace. Life is so hard. People are struggling when it comes to food, the cost of living. Honestly, the last thing you want is then to be fighting with your child over something you could just give to them.
Exactly.
It's an easier option, isn't it?
Much easier.
The easiest one. And then the thing is, though, I don't know how it's going to look like now with the new sort of cost of living crisis, where I think there should be further research to see how many people, mums and dads, are going back into work full-time or more than full-time to actually adjust for the cost of living, and how that has an impact on how much time you spend on with your children. Because actually you do have to do the daily stuff with providing food, etc. When you come home, you're absolutely tired. You don't have the energy to sit and argue with anybody, and that's when we say, here you go,
absolutely,
peace for you and peace for me.
And a lot of parents are guilty of this.
They are.
Lot, because like you said, they've had a long day at work, they're stressed out themselves, they're also going through mental health themselves because they've got so many responsibilities, and the easier option is to just say, here you go, here's the iPad, just eat your dinner within the next hour, 2 hours, and then you're going to sleep.
Exactly.
Because it's the easier option. And now more and more, there's debates going on where a lot of research is showing that a lot of kids are using social media also on the flip side to learn, educate, develop social skills, but also become more confident as well. So I feel like sometimes I've seen my goddaughter go onto YouTube channels. She's now learning to present. She wants to have her own YouTube channel, and on the other side, it's teaching them good kind of like skills as well. But on the other side, a lot of the kids are saying, according to research, is when I was doing a lot of research yesterday, that they're feeling lonely. Because their parents are busy, they bring their work home with them. They're feeling lonely, and sometimes they don't have good friend circles at school, so almost the device is compensating for their loneliness as well.
It is. I have a lot of children at the moment with school refusal, which has happened after the pandemic. So we are, there is that element, and it's become where kids have become very anxious, they've become depressed, they've become addicted to their phones, addicted to being in a room. Some of them sleep through the day, awake all night. And that's what we're dealing with. But I think there has to be some a bridge really of trying to find what do they need, why are they lonely. And I think the external locus of control, because all of us, it's not just the children, the adults as well are, the children learn by example. adults as well are constantly looking for an external locus of control. My friend, my this, my that, I'm going out, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's an external locus of control. And then we've got the flip side where people are like, now I'm going to a mountain to meditate. Because, it wasn't like this a few years ago. Everybody did a bit of everything and it was fine. But now I didn't get invited to that party, we actually, when we are upset ourselves, our children are watching us and they know how my mum was upset when she wasn't invited. So if I'm not invited, I need to be upset as well.
Right.
It's not about just letting go. It's about how you've actually managed your friendships, how you've managed your social life. Your children are learning from that automatically. I've seen a new trend where, say for example, weddings or parties, on the cards nowadays, you will get, sorry, we can't invite your children, it's just husband and wife because we can't accommodate children. To me, I'm just trying to understand, how are these children ever going to learn what a wedding looks like? How are they ever going to know what their aunties and uncles look like? Because how does this work when they're not invited to things that they could be invited to, and where we were invited to anything that our parents went to?
We had to go.
We had to go.
We had to go all the time. We had no option.
Exactly. And when we went, we were all right, actually.
Yeah.
So we were all right. We did have fun and we came back. So we are actually, it's the whole social situation that's actually causing these issues as well.
I agree. I think we've lost our attachment network.
We have.
So I was reading a fantastic book by Dr. Bahry, and he talks about this, where previously you would have grown up, you would have had your uncles, your aunts around, your grandparents, and you could have talked to them and had great relationships pre-puberty.
Yeah.
That was really important to create these lines of trust pre-puberty, and then when puberty hits, you have other people you can go to ask questions. And I remember like my mamaji's, I'm so close to my mamaji or my mummy or anyone that I could have, some things I might not have wanted to tell my mum at the time, but I would have been happy telling my mussy. But then I look at our children, and because we've almost segregated according to age, even when you do summer camps, it's according to age. When you go to parties, kids on one side, adults on the other side. We don't really have this network where adults are talking to children and forming good, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do this even with my daughter Sienna, is to create almost our attachment village, where we do different things with the mums and the girls, and we'll go and do a weekend, or we'll go and do a charity walk or whatever, but everyone's talking to everybody. It's not segregated according to age.
Exactly. Because otherwise we're never going to learn. You're never going to learn how to actually manage social situations. You're not going to learn how to manage conflict. And the role model that you're going to be for your children is not sort of an integrated role model where you haven't sort of, done a comprehensive upbringing. There is a saying that says it takes a village to bring up a child.
Yeah, it really does.
It does really take a village to bring up a child. You cannot bring them up in isolation. They are going to be bored. They need to be a part of everything you do. That's my mantra. Your kids need to be a part of everything that you do.
I totally agree.
Take them with you if you can. But, like I said, the world's coming to another stage. You can't take them if they're not invited.
Yeah.
But where you can, please do take them.
Organize it yourself. Yes. So don't wait for other people. So this is what even with my business, for example, I want my children to understand my business. So I've created products with my daughter in collaboration. I want her in my laboratory. I want her seeing everything, because then we build a bond.
Yeah.
So later, when there's other stimulation happening, we've got our bond, we've got our thing, we've got our own lingo, our own, conversations that we can have, because she's been with me on so much of the journey. But that's something that would just not happen for most people, because you would think children are too young for this, or, keep them separate, let them be, really with their device, doing that one thing so I can focus on what I'm doing. It takes energy to focus on a child while you're also focusing on your work. It's not easy.
It's not easy. And all of us, I think, people are really struggling financially because of what's happened. We are all ambitious, we want to do well in our lives. It's a hard balance. Some people are opting not to have kids anymore. And when you ask them why, they say, well, I have no space.
Yeah.
There's just no space in my house for kids anymore because I'm busy with my life. I think that's fair as well. I mean, if you can't, then you prioritize what you want to do. There's no judgment there.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's if we have them, then we are obliged, and it is our sort of responsibility to make sure that that they are a part of our journey.
Yeah.
They cannot be in isolation. And we have to take an effort to build that bond. It takes time, and it doesn't come with giving things. You can give them the best thing in the world. It doesn't come with that. It's your time that
you
it
don't
comes
have to
with.
associate it with materialistic
No,
things.
it's not.
So I think that's where a lot of parents go wrong.
Yeah.
They are giving them like all these materialistic things and a game, and you know, I'm going to take you there and bribe them that I'm going to do this if you do this. It doesn't have to be there, like you said. It's all about time, love, and affection. That's all they need, because they're sponges. They're absorbing everything. And I think as obviously adults, we need to take accountability and responsibility.
100%.
On whether you're a godparent or a guardian or a parent. And I'm single. I'm in my late 30s, and I do worry. I think I'm so busy, always running around working, because I'm ambitious and I'm driven. And I do sometimes even think at this point, am I now ready to have children? Because if I can't give them my time, dedication, everything that they're going to need, especially in this digital, you know, revolution that we're going through. And it's like you said, with cost of living, things are only going to get worse.
Yes,
you
they
know,
are.
I know lots of my friends are discussing, can we even afford now to have children?
Yeah.
If you want them to send them to grammar schools, you want to send them to private schools,
Yeah.
how are we going to afford that? You
Which is very,
even with
very
two
expensive.
incomes coming in.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think a lot of people, it's affecting them mentally, because you want the child, you want to give them everything, but so much has changed, like from the basics of, like Vinny was saying earlier, we never used to have phones, we never used to have gadgets, we used to get on the trains, we used to go and play on our bicycles, you know, we used to, you know, the simplest things used to
We had to study.
So
We weren't
entertaining.
allowed to do anything except
When
work.
we
Like,
right?
get up and do your
At
work.
night. Now they don't even want to read books, because they'd rather just, you know, be on, like you said,
Book
on
is
their
boring.
iPads. Yeah, it's boring.
Boring. There's nothing moves.
Yeah.
You know, compared to
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you ask, you know, like some of the topics that the kids are learning, when they ask them, why are you actually listening this on you? Why are you listening this to you? It's easier, mom. YouTube is easier. I'm understanding this better. It's quicker. It's easier. Because if you ask me to read 10 pages, more effort. I wonder what this does to children's eyesights as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
It's affected.
absolutely.
So I think in Singapore, they've got the highest rate of short-sightedness,
Yeah.
and they have the highest screen time. So I want to move a little bit towards schools now, because I'm sure a lot of people watching here are parents, but they're also governors and they're also teachers. And what are we doing when it comes to schools and screens? How many hours are they on screens there? Does it affect them mentally and their eyesight? And also, should we be preventing mobile phones from coming into schools? Should those be locked away with consequences if mobile phones are found on premises?
My understanding is that at school, they're not allowed their mobile phones.
They're not allowed their mobile
Yeah.
phones, but if you go on to, I know a few senior schools that you walk, and every third person child has got a mobile phone in their hands, and it's almost like it's too much for the teachers to police. It's not the teacher's fault, honestly.
No.
What do you do when 30% of the school is walking around with a mobile phone? What are you going to say? Lock it up until the end of the day. But guess what? They were meant to do that anyway, so where's the consequence? So the consequence, there has to be a legitimate consequence for them to go, it's not worth it. It's just better to put the phone away in the locker, because if I get caught with it, X, Y, Z will happen.
I think some schools do have that though,
Yeah.
because I know of my children's school that
Are they very firm?
They are firm.
What do they do?
They do not allow. So on the school premises, you have to switch off your phone. You can't get through them during school time.
So
You
what
can't use it even
happens?
at lunch break or any breaks?
I
at all?
think at lunch break they can use it,
Right.
because couple of times, text from my daughter during lunchtime. But I don't think that they are allowed their mobile phones until they're actually out of the premises.
So what's the consequence here?
I think if they are found with their mobile phones, it is taken away.
For how long?
I
Confiscated.
think till the next day, or till the parent comes and takes it.
That's a good idea, till the parent comes and takes it, because that way the onus is on the parent, and now there is actually a proper consequence, not just to the end of the day, because the end of the day was supposed to happen anyway.
Yeah,
So for me,
nobody cares.
No one cares.
No.
There's no
Yeah.
consequence there.
But I know
I
a lot
like
of them
that
get
idea.
detentions. They
Yeah.
write home to
Yeah,
the school.
home. Yeah,
To the
detentions
parents,
as well.
sorry, they write home. They call the parents, and the parents are alerted straight
Yeah,
away.
they
that
are.
They were found using their
In
phone.
senior school?
Yeah,
In senior
schools.
school.
Right, we need to make this
Private
like a
schools.
national.
So I think the children are scared, and then it's
Okay.
obviously you've got to play a role as a parent with the teachers to say, if you are caught, there's another double consequence at home as well.
Yes.
So if
I'd be
the
happy to
teachers
take
and
it
the
on.
parents play,
Honestly, as a parent, I'm happy for all the consequences to happen.
Yeah.
Call me in, embarrass me in front of the child, so the child understands this is a big deal. Because right now, I know some of the schools is just it's they're walking around mobiles, filming on campus, and that's just.
But that's really not allowed.
Very dangerous.
Yeah,
actually.
very dangerous, because you're filming other children, which is not allowed. I mean, the other trick that kids have now is the watches.
Yeah.
They're calling people the smart watches. They're calling people through watches.
Yes.
So I would be very cautious with actually giving your child a smartwatch, because then they're using it in lessons to ring people or text from those smart. I don't know whether you can actually text from them, but you
can send messages.
Okay, so you
on the
can
Apple
then.
Watch,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
So they're using the smartwatch, because that's you want to see how many calories you've burned, how much you've walked. You really don't need any of that. You just don't need no smartwatch.
Yeah.
Let the smartwatch be smart and stay home.
Yeah.
Then you have it over the weekend or whatever, but not when you're in class, because it's a distraction.
It's a distraction. Every time a notification comes up, I'm looking at the notification, let alone like actually buzzing on my arm.
It's an addiction. And the minute you don't look at your phone for 10 minutes, I feel if I haven't looked at my phone for... And I'm not the most important person in the world. If somebody really needs to find me, I'm sure they can ring somewhere else and find me.
Yeah.
But it's this expectation that we're going to have our phones on us 24/7.
Yeah.
We need a detox.
100%.
For our children to have a detox.
You're right.
Sometimes I just feel
We
the same.
need a detox so that our
100%.
kids can have a detox.
So what do you do if the bond is gone, or trust is gone from the parent and the child, both sides, and the child is making threats when you're trying to remove devices from them?
What kind of threats?
Extreme threats. I'll kill myself. I'll do this to myself. I'll hurt myself. Self-harm. All these threats which do happen. And the parent is already scared because we're hearing that this does happen. What do you do in that type of situation?
I think this is when, if you've come to a stage where actually you can't take the mobile away at all from your child, and they're threatening you with, firstly you need to find out, why are they so insecure? Why do they not want that mobile to be away from them? So
I think it's a connection to whoever's on the other side. So
it's an obsession.
It's almost like it's like a need, because it might be that they didn't have that connection somewhere else in their life, and they're not getting that kind of attention from anywhere else, and they're getting it from whoever's on the other side of the phone, which can happen during puberty as well. And we're not reasoning properly, and our emotions are going through the roof. Children make miscalculations all the time. Yes. I think that's part of it, but also parents again maybe have been more about the friendship and less about being firm, and so we give, and we've always given, because that is our love language. It's almost like the more I give you, the more I love you. The more ice cream I give you, the more I love you. So you've got a bit of that happening as well. So now you're in that situation where the child really knows they have you over barrel, because at this point they can just say, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to have social services come in. What do you do? Because these threats are happening.
I mean, which is fine. If you want to call, you've not hurt the child. You've not done anything to, you've not harmed them in any way. You want to call the police, you want to call social care, that's up to you. But at the end of the day, I think, the boundary setting, it cannot be a negotiation, because you can't start becoming the parent. And if you're at a stage where, this is happening, I think you should seek formal help. You do go and see a psychiatrist, get some family therapy involved, because it's actually out of your hands now. If you're getting a child who's giving you threats that, if you take my mobile away for 2 minutes, I'm going to kill myself, I think that is too extreme. You really need help now. These are the words that I will look for, that actually now I think this is serious now. If it was happening to me, I would say this is serious now. I need help. Okay. I need an external person to come and help me now, because if my daughter's saying or my son's saying I'm not going to give my mobile away, then it means that it means that things have actually gone out of my hand. I need a family therapist to come in, or a psychiatrist to come in, to see what's wrong, what's actually gone wrong here.
And can they regain the control back?
Why not? I don't think it's ever too late.
Okay.
I really don't. I really think it's a work in process. It's not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, it's not like a chest infection, 5 days antibiotics. But it is going to be something that's easily doable. It's going to be a process, but with the right support and help, of course it's doable.
Okay.
I don't see it not being doable. It is doable.
Okay.
You might need to have a little bit of family therapy. Maybe the child needs some individual therapy. But we live in a complicated world.
At least you'll get to the deeper rooted issue.
Exactly. Where is it coming from?
What, like you're saying.
Why is your self-esteem? Like the research shows that, children who are on their mobile phones or gadgets for longer periods of time have low self-esteem, lack confidence, self-isolating. Is it related to that? Are they anxious? Are they depressed? To say that actually I want to kill myself, or I'm going to self-harm if you take my mobile away.
But self-harm and suicide, the rates have increased in the teenage years.
They have.
Why?
Because there is, I think what we are also dealing with now is the aftermath of COVID. So we've got more children who are depressed and anxious. We do not have tier 2, as we call it. We don't have the support systems in school. We don't have the support systems in the community anymore to hold these children. So their mental health deteriorates until they can, you can't get into, the waiting lists are very long for CAMS. So we see that, children deteriorate significantly before they come into hospital.
Wow. So
or before they get
nothing.
help.
So there's nothing from talking to maybe a teacher at school to hospital. There's no.
There is CAMS.
What's CAMS?
Community Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services.
Okay.
There's that, which is tier 3 in between, but it is inundated.
Right.
There is just, it's a mixture of not having enough support there, not having enough professionals there, recruitment crisis, too many children. So CAMS, as you see it in the papers everywhere, they are overwhelmed. So, what do we do?
Do you know what? I understand why teenagers might be feeling depressed and anxious, because honestly everyone's bodies are changing at this point. Yes. I remember being very overweight, my teeth were everywhere, I just felt really just ugly. I just felt unseen, I felt ugly, I felt like I probably wasn't really worthy. And if I then on top of that had a million people to compare myself who were the same age as me and were beautiful, I already was very quite lonely and sad. I don't know how it would have felt if I was then also comparing myself to other people. I probably would have been one of these kids. So I just can't see where the strength is with digital
resilience.
But where does the resilience come from?
From family. And you build resilience, don't we?
How do we build resilience in children whose minds are being altered by devices and hours per day on devices?
Social media.
Yeah.
And social media. How do we build resilience?
I think the parents themselves need to first display resilience themselves. When there is a situation that happens and you can see parents getting extremely worried and anxious about it, or not having that resilience to cope with a problem that's happened in the house or whatever. Children learn by example. We all know that. They are, all our kids are a copy of what we are. Yeah, you can always say that X looks like me and Y looks like my husband, or the other way around. Or you demonstrate that resilience. Talk to them about problem solving. Explain that if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world, and we can start talking about it. And there's always a solution to a problem. Nothing is impossible.
Agreed.
Nothing is impossible. Even the word, like they say, impossible means I'm possible. I always say that to my kids. There'll always be a solution. And that's all the young people that I see. Some of them are so unwell who are with me as an inpatient child. And I always say to them, this is possible. This is possible. Good and bad things happen. Let's use this time to build resilience. Seek professional help. If the resilience is, you feel you can't do it, something's really bad's happened, seek help. It's not a taboo anymore. Everybody is doing it. Seek help. Just ask for it.
Yeah. There
is that support if you look for it as well. And that's why I think at the tier 2 level, schools, educating schools, educating teachers, putting that support in, having professionals like us going into school, taking time out from our time to actually give these talks and, build that resilience in children at school, talk to the children at school. I think that is a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even myself, I was bullied when I was at school. And I wasn't going into school, and I was bunking off. Yeah. And I self-taught myself, and I'd get all my notes from my friends. And I found it hard to talk to my parents even 20 years, 30 years ago about getting bullied. And it was only till that I spoke to some of my cousins and my brothers and sisters that they said, you do need to report this. And it was only when I wasn't attending the classes that they found out, and then they alerted my parents. I was still scared to tell my parents, and then it was my brothers and sisters that actually then told my parents that she's being bullied at school and she's not going in. That then I was, had the opportunity to go and see a counsellor in the school. So, there was support there then at that point. And I was going into counselling then at least once a week, just to kind of, really be able to tell the counsellor what I am going through, and that saved me. And if I hadn't seeked that help at that point, I don't know where I would have been, because I had suicidal thoughts and all sorts of things going through my head, thinking, why is this happening to me? What is going on? And now it is scary, like Vinny is saying, that you've got all this digital, access to social media, comparing your lives. You're going through all these pressures at school. Your bodies are changing. That I urge anybody, any parent, talk to your children. Communication is absolutely key, and be that role model, and show that resilience. Because now, because of what I went through then, it's made me the woman I am today.
100%.
And I'm so strong that I would stand up against anybody.
Yeah.
Because now it's like the people that were bullying me, it's like, where are you now?
Yeah, and where am I now? Exactly.
And look how hard I've worked because of my resilience that has got me to where I am today. 100%. And I stand proud. Yeah. By that time, I wanted my world literally to be over.
Yeah.
And now I stand tall and proud.
Yeah.
And it's still
well
giving me goosebumps.
Well done.
But you've got to do it.
Done.
And people look at you and think, oh, you've probably never been through any of that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the opposite.
We all have a story to tell.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I say this in my clinic as well when I'm talking to children and they're coming with me for different problems, and I say, you never know. We're 4 of us in this room. All of us might have a story to tell. Somebody wants to talk about it, and some people don't want to talk about it. But all of us have a story to tell. I might have my own. Yeah. So everybody has a story to tell, and all of us have, but some of us have had the resilience, the support to come out on the other end. And sadly, some of the others haven't.
That breaks my heart.
That breaks our heart.
It really does.
And that's where our responsibility lies as people in the community who have experience to help our children, to help this generation and the future generations, because if our kids don't really have resilience, their children are not going to have resilience. Yeah. We are creating, problems that are going to last for centuries, really, because you've not given it to this generation. You don't understand to give what you haven't got. I got a lot of love as a child from my parents, so I've understood how to give it. If I didn't get it, I wouldn't know what to give. Yeah. So you have to build those resilience, ask for help and support, and don't be shy to ask for it. And I know some of the parents, when I'm saying this, who are listening to me now, are going to think, well, Dr. Bahry, we are asking for this help. We are asking, but, systems are failing us now. We've come to the other side where parents no longer worry that it's a taboo or anything. You're sad. My child is looking sad. Let me just go to a therapist. I don't care anymore. But there is no services available. I think that's where we need to step up. We need to start thinking about what we could do to kind of do more voluntary work. I urge all professionals who work with children to step up and even think about a few hours of voluntary work where people who do not have the funds actually use your time to get some support and help. We all do a little bit. Maybe things will change.
Yeah, I agree. I also think being open about our stories is really important. So even with my daughter, I'm dyslexic, for example, and I tell her, Mummy really struggled reading. All the words would be jumbled, and I'd feel really just dumb, to be honest. And so you're doing really well with your reading. You think you got a bad grade, but Mummy was much worse than you were. So you're gonna be fine. Yeah. So me saying that, she just immediately on her face calmed down, and everything. She just relaxed. Like, Mummy's already been through worse than this. So when we say what we've actually been through, it just takes everything away, the pressure from them. If anything, any kind of inappropriate sexual touching ever happened growing up, if you say it, and if it ever, God forbid, ever happens to your children,
they will come and talk to you.
They will tell you, because Mummy's already told me it's happened. So then
that openness
is everything.
I always say, you cannot lose the dialogue between you and your child. They have to be a part of everything they do. Try your best. Yeah. I mean, we live in a tough world because we want to socialize, we want to go out, otherwise we're forgotten. We want to have good relationships with our family. We want to have a good life, so we work very hard. So it's too much. Yeah. But you just find doing a little bit of everything and focusing on your priority, which is supposed to be children. I think that is the key, and include them in everything.
I agree.
Because that's how you create openness.
Completely agree.
So true. Completely so true. We can really make such an impact if we are just open and communicating and making them feel like they can come to us about anything. And lastly, the last question I wanted to ask you, Ragini, was about ChatGPT. Because I feel this is another thing that is going to change the education system for our children if they are allowed. And I know that, there's so many stories in the news at the moment that they can literally just go onto these apps now and these platforms, type out what they want for an exam or a question for their homework, and they get their answers and their essays straight away.
I know.
And it's so scary that what is this? And I know this is a topic all on its own, but what do you feel? How is this now going to impact furthermore to everything else that's going on, that they can now just quickly go onto a device or onto a platform and their entire homework, their essay and everything is done. And I know as the teachers are monitoring it now because they can tell.
Yeah, because they obviously there's like when you write papers, for example, there are systems, isn't it? There are systems that you have to run through so that it's not
plagiarized.
It's not plagiarized and you've not copied from XYZ and So they might, it'll have to come from high up, isn't it? Because the government will have to start putting some systems in place to actually identify pieces of work. You might need to run something through your essay to find out that you've not copied and pasted it from somewhere or from an app that was saying whatever. So it's not. So there will not be just us. It will have to come really from high up down, where they will have to say, we'll have to check what you've given us. And it's a shame really, because, and whether this should be even allowed and made legal. Yeah. Is this even, is this should be, we're allowing all these apps to come in, to solve all our problems. But how are they ever going to learn to write an essay or write a paragraph of something if everybody's going to do everything for them?
I agree. If you had to stand up on stage and convey your thoughts and you've never had to even put it to paper, how are you going to do it?
How are you going to do it? So I think this is really something which is not going to be in our control, to be honest, because we wouldn't know, especially when they are doing their A-levels or, we will have to give them freedom to do their own work. Because at A-levels, I'm not going to sit with my child and it's going to be quite punitive, really. I wouldn't be doing that. So I think it really needs to go back to what the policies of the government will be. What are they going to do? Are they going to run some kind of softwares to say, well, this was cut, copied, paste, or please can you do it again, or whatever else, really.
So do you think technology is literally going to take power and really damage the world? Because like you were saying, there's that emotional interaction, that personal interaction. Even when you go to the airport now, you have to check in your bag yourself. There's nobody there anymore to say, welcome, where you going to, that interaction. Even when you go to a supermarket, you can do everything now, just on, you can even
the tag
scan the tags, and you don't even need to go and see anyone at the end. You just literally go to the checkout at the end and just say,
it makes people very lonely.
Very lonely.
It's going to be such a lonely world.
Think about the elderly who I see so many times, when you go, say, for example, you've gone into a Tesco counter and you're seeing, the elderly chat with the person who's on the till. Actually, that might be the only chat for them for the whole day.
Yeah.
So, you're losing skill by skill. But as humans, I think this is where we need to power up now and say, well, we're not going to let that happen, and not finding shortcuts to everything, and try our best not to find shortcuts to everything, and don't lose the human touch. The human touch is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
I have one question that I am most nervous about, and that is on ambition. And so growing up with the whole resilience, I'm sure, whenever you go through anything growing up and it's difficult, you're always thinking, okay, if I just do X, Y, and Z, I'll get to this point and then I'll be okay. And that was always my mindset. If I was struggling with anything, I was like, I just need to get through these things and I will be set for life. I'll be happy, etc. But if you're having these dopamine hits and you're losing resilience and you're losing grit and you're not really passionate about anything, how are they going to achieve anything? The answer I'm getting from a lot of teens right now is when I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say, I just want to retire.
Everybody wants to retire.
I've never heard this. Like growing up, I've never heard that as a word that you wanted to do growing up.
I agree with you, but this is where my concern is really, for people who are ambitious, if somebody asks me, when you want to retire, I said, maybe when I'm actually just at my deathbed, that's when I want to retire, because I can't imagine my life with all these gaps. I literally wouldn't know what to do with myself. And I think we have something to give back to community as well, so there is no chance you want to do voluntary work, you don't have to do a 24/7 job, but you might want to do other things. I think it's about role modeling for us as well, because a lot of people in our age are also saying now that at 40 they want to retire, at 50 they want to retire. They don't want to do this life. They don't want this life anymore.
This has been so inspirational. Thank
So
you.
informative.
It's been a fantastic
There's so many
talk.
takeaways.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents, children, of all age ranges are going to be able to, really be inspired and hopefully implement into their lives. And finally, what would be your final do's and don'ts for both children and parents to protect them and not allow technology and social media to shape their lives?
So my do's would be spending time with your children, making sure that you are their go-to person and you're spending time with them, quality time, not on your phone. Educating them about the pros and cons about everything they do, not just about the mobile phone, but everything that they do in their life, the path that they choose, gadgets, pros and cons of everything. And level of boundary setting, which is not over the top, but a negotiable boundary setting. So those are the do's. Don'ts: do not put your children as not your priority, because they are your priority and there is no going away from that. They are your priority. Do not overdo things as well, because some parents, they go into the overdrive mode and overdoing things. Now you cannot, going to another extreme, you cannot have your mobile for 20 days. I find these things too extreme, so don't overdo that as well. And do not always just try to be, you're not your child's best friend always. You're a parent, you're a friend, and you have multiple roles to play in their lives. So you must play all these roles with equal responsibility. That would be my take-home message.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it.
And also, what platforms and help can parents seek if they want to go to therapy, family therapy? What would be also?
I think your first port of call needs to be your tier 2 services. So your school, to find out there's counseling in school, because they are more easily accessible. Like I've said, there's more sort of support there. Then you've got, if things are really bad, then you've got community camps, the child and adolescent mental health services. So you've got professionals there who are, happy to help you. You've got a lot of voluntary organizations. You look up what voluntary organizations you've got in the local area. You will be surprised. There's so many of them now. Like for autism in Surrey, you've got Mustard Seeds. There's multiple, National Autistic Society. You've got a lot of Young Minds. You've got multiple things that will help you with counseling, etc. So, if other systems are overwhelmed. And then obviously, if things are really difficult, and, let the professionals decide what other support is needed. But do ask for help. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much for
It's
joining
been a
us
pleasure.
today. Thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget, we are in the comment section for 1 hour at the launch of every single video, every YouTube video. So make sure you're here, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and come and ask us your questions down below.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you follow us on our Taboo Table Talks Instagram page as well. See you then. Bye.
Bye.